So, ladies and gentlemen, today on Sports File, I was thinking about doing a podcast on Jacques Plante, and I was trying to decide what part of his career could I cover, because legendary goalie changed all facets of the game, changed the game, how the game was played, protective equipment, playing the puck from behind the net. He's positive aspect, almost like a third defenseman. But what I'm centering on this in the podcast is he's many, many lives after he retired from the New York Rangers. Now, we all know, because of a discord between him and management with Montreal, he was eventually traded to the New York Rangers in a multiplayer deal that included Gubb Worsley coming back to Montreal. Now, with the Rangers, he didn't really fit with the squad. And he eventually ended up with the Rangers AHL affiliate in Baltimore in 1965. And because his wife was ill at the time, he also required surgery on his right knee, which he had trouble with with injuries over the years. He said, I'm not doing this anymore. And upon retirement, this is the first retirement, Plante took a job with Molson, which was the owner of the Habs, as a sales representative, but remained active in the NHL, indirectly and directly. In 1965, Scotty Bowman asked Plante to play for the Montreal Junior Canadiens in a game against the Soviet national team. It's too bad there's no tape of this match, because I heard it was excellent. Honored to represent his country, Plante agreed, and after receiving permission from both the Rangers, who owned his rights, and Bolton, he began practicing. The junior Canadiens won 2-1, and Plante was named first star of the game. See, back then it was more of a combination deal between the NHL and the junior affiliates if these things could occur, because I know exhibition games against international teams and college teams from the States were quite common. Now, at the beginning of the 67-68 season, expansion of course, Plante got a very interesting call from an ex-teammate, Bert Olmsted, who was a heavy star with Montreal for many years. He said, Jacques, I need some help coaching the expansion Oakland Seals, or what it was, California Golden Seals later on. Plante, who coached mainly by example, stayed for 3 weeks and returned home to Montreal. And get this, he also played an exhibition game with the Seals. So he put on the gear for a team he eventually never played for in a regular season game. Now, rumors swirled heavy that Plante was planning a comeback. Now, in June of 1968, Plante was selected in an interleague draft by the St. Louis Blues and signed for $35,000, which was good money at the time, for the 69 season. Now, his first season with the Blues, Plante split the goaltending duties with fellow future Hall of Famer Glenn Hall. He won the Vezina Trophy that season for the 7th time, surpassing Bill Durham's record. Now, they played Montreal in the final, but St. Louis was swept in 4 games. Now, while playing for the Blues in the 1970 season, again in the playoffs against the Bruins, which was the final, a shot was fired by Fred Stanfield and redirected by Felix Mazzito. It hit Plante right in the forehead, knocking him out and breaking his fiberglass mask. The first thing Plante said after regaining consciousness at the hospital was that the mask saved his life. And remember the controversy about him wearing the mask after he got cut in that famous incident so many years before. Now, that game proved to be his last for the Blues, and he was traded in the summer of 1970 to Montreal's arch rival, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, that season he led the NHL with the lowest goals against average during his first season with the Maple Leafs, but because of the breakdown of the then Vezina Trophy, it was the lowest average. And the team, Toronto, didn't have the lowest average that year, even though Jacques had the best GAA. Now, at season's end, he was named to the NHL's second All-Star team, his 7th such honor. Now, he continued to play for the Leafs until he was traded to the Boston Bruins late in the 73 season, recording a shutout against the Blackhawks in his debut for the Bruins. Now, he played 8 regular season and 2 playoff games for the Bruins to finish that season, his last in the NHL. Now, we're thinking again he's in retirement, and like Brett Favre, he couldn't really make up his mind. Plante later accepted a $1 million 10-year contract to be coach and GM of the fledgling Quebec Nordiques of the WHA in 1973. Now, if you do remember, Maurice Richard was brought in and different Montreal Canadiens to help out, and the press were really looking forward to this. He was but eventually became highly dissatisfied with his and his team's performance and resigned at the end of the 73-74 season. Now get this, ladies and gentlemen, this is before the influx of some of the former Montreal Canadiens and different players that joined the Nordiques towards the Avco Cup year of 77. But he still had to lure hockey. He came out of retirement, ladies and gentlemen, once more, playing 31 games for a wild squads, the Edmonton Oilers of the WHA, again, which was, before Gretzky arrived and Messier, and the 74-75 season. Now, Plante officially retired, I think, for the 7th time, or 8th time, during the Oilers training camp in 75-76, after receiving news, more family tragedy, that his youngest son had died. The reason why Plante was so well respected, he was a very verbal coach on the ice as a goalie. He would tell players how to play on the ice. He kept really copious notes on players and teams throughout the career. He was the unofficial, like they say, the creator of the forward pass in football. Everything comes back to Jacques Plante. The intelligence, the understanding of the game, the respect for the game, the respect for his opponents. And he also became a great color commentator for the Quebec Junior League and with Danny Gallivan as well. Now, Radio Canada, the French language branch of the CBC, also brought Plante aboard as an on-air analyst for its television broadcast for the Summit Series in 72. Now, if you ever watch the color commentary that Jacques Plante gives, it gives a different feeling about the 7-3 loss to the Russians in Game 1. It's pretty much predicted the way Plante was announcing. And I've listened to the broadcast. He said, this is what I expected. Because, he did play against the Russians. Obviously, he didn't play against Tretiak and some of the other key players. But he knew the best, and that's what he brought him in. Now, he, again, groundbreaking, he basically said in published reports, La Presse, Gazette, he believed that he didn't think the Canadian team was better than the Russians. He said, if anything, it's pretty dangerous. Now, he was known to write numerous books on hockey and hockey columns, everything from the Shawinigan Voice, Le Samedi, which is a very good magazine, and Sport Magazine, which is the U.S. equivalent to, I guess, of kind of a sporting news or combination magazine. Now, he also wrote a regular column during his time as coach of the Quebec Nordiques, and his seminal work, of course, it's the Bible of hockey goaltending, literally called Goaltending, which was published in 1972 in English, which a French edition, which is translated as In Front of the Net, which was published in 1973. Now, in the book, he outlined a program of goaltending development that included off-ice exercises, choice of equipment, styles of play, and game day preparation. He also advised on best coaching methods for both young and advanced goaltenders. Now, his book remained popular with coaches and players and were printed in both French and English in 1997. According to statistics, he said the books may have sold as many as 1.2 million copies worldwide, and some of the crib notes in there have appeared in various goalie camp instructions. There was no such thing, ladies and gentlemen, back then as goalie camps. There was hockey camps where goalies were instructed, but everything goes back to Jacques Plante. Now, he also, when I mentioned about that, he created that summer hockey school for young players. Now, he also traveled to Sweden to coach goalies in that country, which obviously led to the great goaltenders we've seen from Sweden over the years. Now, during his first and second retirements, he offered also consultation with numerous teams, besides the Seals, the Canadiens, and the Blues, Philadelphia Flyers, which was impacting Bernie Parent and all the top Flyer goalies through the years. Now, to say Jacques Plante can be concise in one small podcast, it's very, very difficult. But let's look at this, ladies and gentlemen, from the time he broke into hockey in the 1940s for the Montreal Royals, and the time he retired with the Edmonton Oilers in 1975, hockey grew with leaps and bounds. This is a guy, ladies and gentlemen, that parked himself in front of the net for 50,000 minutes in the regular season and nearly 7,000 minutes in the playoffs. So almost 69,000 minutes. 69,000 minutes, can you imagine? But his death of cancer at an early age was a great loss for everybody in hockey. But Jacques Plante, I would consider him, in my personal opinion, a top 5 Montreal Canadian. Now, in the history of goaltending in the NHL, he's the originator. He's the Babe Ruth, the Lou Gehrig. You know, the only thing I can say, everyone that met Jacques Plante found him to be a dedicated individual. Had a lot of family tragedy, but if he would have lived a little bit longer, I think hockey would be better for it. You look at Eddie Shack, how he gave back to hockey. Not really any comparison, because Eddie Shack was an okay player, but Eddie Shack was a teacher of the game and a studier of the game. But how many analysts do you have now that teach hockey while they're announcing as a color commentator? Because people would turn to Jacques Plante, literally, my media colleagues that were told stories about their older colleagues. When something would happen on the ice and Jacques was there, you turned to Jacques and said, "What do you think?" And Jacques said, "Well, that guy was out of position," or whatever. But you got to understand, when you're a fan of hockey, you see the mistakes that happen on the ice on a regular basis. But all the major teams that Jacques Plante influenced, and we're talking about the WHA teams, Montreal Canadiens, the original 6 he played against, he motivated a lot of people to try goaltending because he was his own person. And Jacques Plante decided to go back hockey time and time again. It called, because when the ice froze in the fall, it called back to him, and that's how it works. See, journalists were called to write. We'll see something happen, and we'll write it naturally. Jacques Plante was probably one of the most God-given, best pound-for-pound athletes I've ever seen. The only comparison I can give, and I know it's completely bizarre, because you look at Roberto Duran, you look at Pelé, you look at the modern era, like a Rod Carew, or even a Pete Rose. Pete Rose was very talented. That's the only comparison. Like there's a level of athletes that are semi-gods and gods, and Jacques Plante is a god. See, Montreal Canadiens, they say the goals to the form. I still think that the ghost of Jacques Plante resides in some place across Canada, and this young 12-year-old girl or guy that's learning to be a goaltender, Jacques Plante is saying, whispering, cover the angles, watch your shoulder, keep your glove hand high. And he's probably saying, who's saying that? So, anyway, we miss Jacques Plante. I've met many Montreal Canadiens. Very unfortunate I didn't meet him. I've met, 25 Montreal Canadiens or affiliate players over the years. I know it sounds weird, from Bill McCreary, of all people, the big Atlanta star from back in the day, to Jacques Lemaire, to Guy Lafleur, Stéphane Richer, Richard Sevigny, Yvon Lambert. And it's almost every time I talk to a Montreal Canadian player, there's a little bit of Jacques Plante in them, because he had influence on everybody. Even he was with the Rangers and the Maple Leafs and the Blues and technically the Seals and all these teams, he's, he left a mark. Anyway, on this COVID Friday, we wish you a great evening. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Give me a comment, like, and subscribe. Just a reminder, there's no monetization on my page, so I don't get paid to do this. This is an extension of my old sports file columns for Cadogan Publishing, Raymond Publishing, and Brunswick News Company in the Maritimes. This column originally started in my high school paper in 1983, and ironically, we're coming up to the official 37th anniversary of the column. So if you like it, like we say up at the Beresford Bayview Drive-In, tell your friends. If you don't like it, don't tell nobody. Have a good day. Bye.